So today we're going to talk about the new map Pearl, and to start I'm actually just going to quickly talk about the map itself, and then we're going to look at what agents I think will be good on this map. And this is an initial look, so I could be very wrong on some of these. I will update this as I, kind of get more and more familiar with the map. But let's just dive into the map to start off with as well, and my quick thoughts. My quick thoughts are, it does kind of feel like split in that I think mid will be very important. The reason I think mid will be very important is because if you look at A and B, right, imagine you're the attackers, you come down to here and you get stopped. It is a long way back before you get to an area of like meaningful action again, right? Like if you retreat from, like, let's say here, you have to go a long way to get back to like a meaningful area of the map. Same is true for A, right? Let's say you come down here and get stopped and you have to go back. It's quite a way really before you enter another part of the map. So I do think that mid will be probably pretty contested overall. I mean, this B long place obviously so wide, so big. It is going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But on the whole, I think that, this map will be pretty contested for mid a lot of the time. I think that this like square here will be like a key part of the map overall. If the defenders can't rotate between this, then that will be pretty big. I think if the attackers can like own this square, I think they'll be doing very well indeed. So yeah, I expect that mid will be pretty important on this map, and potential for fast flanking as well down A and B. If mid does become super important, right, and people just leave B and leave A a lot, then that could also be really important. But now let's dive into the agents themselves, and we'll start with Astra. So for me, Astra as a whole, what makes her good on a map, the best thing for Astra is to easily be able to lurk up in positions. And I think that on this map, that probably won't be super easy. If mid is going to be really heavily contested, think of it like Split, right? Like, on an Astra, on Split, you'd probably be just sitting outside mid, but on this map, they're never going to rotate, like, from B heaven in towards vents like they would perhaps on Split, because the defenders are going to rotate through here instead, right? So if you want to lurk on this map, you probably want to be trying to get into that area, and I don't think that will be very easy because both of these parts of mid are probably going to be pretty contested overall. So I don't necessarily think that Astra will find like the most value on this map, because I don't think it's the easiest map to lurk on as a whole. You could potentially look through A, go through like this, you look down here, right? Maybe everyone's gone to B, you come up here and come around this way. Like, it's possible, but again, you can see how long that is. And if we do it from B, like, you're just going to be so cut off from the action if everyone else is towards A. That, like, even on ghost mode here, flying through the map, like, it takes you a long time before you get into a position where you're actually kind of, again, in the action. So I do think that lurking will be somewhat difficult on this map. I mean, Astra will always find a certain amount of value. You'll get very good sucks and stuns on the defensive side in particular on this map. I mean, this little choke point here that I think will be very important is absolutely tiny. So, just putting a suck into this, right, it's just going to be super impactful, and going to be a massive problem for the attackers. So yeah, I do think Astra will find some value, don't get me wrong, but I think it might not be as high as some of her best maps. And now let's come to Omen, and Omen to me is all about one way and flashes. There are some good flashes on this map, something like this would be quite nice as the attackers are coming down there. From a defender's point of view, you could do a flash for your teammates here on the defensive side, right? That's going to help your teammates defend that. On the attacking side, there's some decent ones, I think, as well. Something like this just down there somewhere would be quite nice, I think. I mean, you could potentially even, get yourself just into this little corner here. Maybe you want a TP, and then you have this as well to look at. So that's all potential flashes, and I do think there are some decent flashes on this map on the whole, right? Maybe you want to hit someone in that little cubby there. That's all possible. So I do think Omen will have some use on this map, no doubt, because there are some good flashes. In terms of one ways, there are some. Hopefully I can hit them. That should be good enough for one there. Yeah, something like this, right, where that's going to be a pretty nightmarish thing for the attackers to come through. You see they can't really crouch to it either. So yeah, that's a pretty good one way here on this door. There is an okay one. I think the attackers might just be able to crouch under this one, but it's okay, I would say, overall. Onto this little thing here. You can see it just lands there. If they don't know what they're doing, then they probably will be caught out by this, as you can see. If once people get more experience, though, they probably will just be doing this, like crouch walking across. You can still see down there. So this one maybe not as quite as effective. And then there really isn't too many other great one ways that I found. It's very possible that there are some more. You can do one on B somewhere here. I just don't know exactly where. I did do it before. I promise, but yeah, I can't quite seem to find it. It seems quite difficult to do. A lot of the one-ways do seem a bit more difficult. Oh, maybe I just had it there. But anyway, you can do one here where you can see people running there. So there is a potential there as well. But on the whole, I don't think this will be Omen's best map. But again, kind of like Astra, he'll still find some value. I mean, it's a very good ult spot like down here where, you know, the people in mid will probably hear you. The people in here will probably hear you, but the people on B might not. But the thing is, these people in mid have to, you know, they have to crouch under this. It's going to take a while. You can probably beat them, in fact, you know, to getting over here, for instance, and, you know, just coming behind on A and getting some free kills here. So, definitely some potential with the ult as well. But yeah, Omen, I would say, is okay on this map. But now let's quickly come to Brim. I mean, Brim's a pretty simple agent, right? Like, and he does have a problem on this map, I think, and that is that you can't smoke this little bit here because of the way Brim's smokes work, of course. So you can smoke Heaven and you can try and smoke off. Ends off as a kind of a bit of a one-way, perhaps, but obviously, even if you like miss it slightly, you know, attackers can just come here. They can still see through. It's kind of a bit of an interesting play. It'll be interesting to see how this really works in a game. I'd have to probably see it, but yeah, not ideal that he can't really smoke that off. And obviously, just coming down this long part of B, like if you're on the defensive side here, what on earth do you do, right? Are you gonna chain two smokes across like that, right? It's hardly ideal on this side of the map for Brim. So I do think that could be a bit of a problem. Oh, whilst we're on B, I will just show you the ult overall. I think the ult on this B site will be pretty good. It's going to catch almost all of the site, right? I doubt many plants will come in on this side, so you know, that's going to be a pretty good ult, I think, overall. And you will find some value coming onto A. If you just did a full A push, I think it would be fine, right? You can just come in. You can smoke this, you can smoke that, you can smoke something like that, and away you go, right? And in you come. Something like this, I think, will be fine for the A side. So A is less of a problem for Brim, B more of a problem. And so I think Brim will be, again, maybe okay on this map, but I don't think, again, it's going to be like a prime Brim map. And now we come to Viper, and I think Viper is going to be super, super, super strong on this map on the whole. And I think that the reason is because of this. How wide open this space is, how big it is, right? That no other smoker is really going to come close to be able to efficiently smoking this off. And I think for Viper, there's going to be some interesting setups. I mean, you could even do a wall like that, and then maybe I did do this yesterday, where you put an orb down, something maybe like this, right? It comes down here, lands about there or something, right? You put the orb up, it allows you to walk up here, right? You start walking up with the orb, you put up your wall as well. Once you get to like this point, you start coming out of the smoke. Check that side, managed to walk in. Very reminiscent of like Bind and Split, right? Where you can get potentially very deep with Viper pretty early on. And I think that this is something that really Viper has a big advantage over some of the other controllers on this map, is setups like that, or even maybe something like, if I can come up here, something like this, right? With a wall like maybe across the B side like that. I do think will be pretty effective on the whole, right? Kind of reminiscent of Icebox in a way. You know, the B site needing this Viper smoke running across it to be viable. I think something like that could be pretty good. I mean, you could even do a wall across both the top and bottom as well, from like back here. So, you know, something kind of like this here could be pretty useful as well. And so I do think that Viper will find a lot of value, right? Just doing these kind of walls. So I do think that Viper will be pretty good, but I think it's more than just that. On the defensive side, you know, you can do walls across here from B that maybe cut across all the way to the kind of barrier at the top, the thing at the top there. So you have this wall obviously for this part of B here, and then if you get it right, you'll be able to get a wall up in this area as well. But I just think the Viper will be super, super good. One of the key reasons I think Viper will be good is if I can get this ult right. This kind of ult, I think, is just completely absurdly broken. I think I've talked about the importance of mid in this map, right? But the thing is, either way they go on mid with this kind of ult, they have to push through the Viper's ult, right? They have to push through it in some way and have to kind of push through that. And you'll probably be on this side here, and they just aren't getting... You aren't dying here, right? Because they're going to have to come through this. And you can just put a molly there, and like, what are they going to do? Right? They literally can't get to you. There's no way. Even if they push you off with the utility, there's no way they're actually getting through. You can just spam in there. You know, you have like little corners that you can hide in down here, or maybe on this side of the box as well, even close on the right hand side here. Like, there's no way that they get past this. And you're going to help your teammates on the other side of mid as well, right? Because they're going to have to push through it at some point. They're going to be taking a bit of a decay, and so you'll be helping your team on this side as well. I think this is just a really, really good Viper's ult on the whole. The one way that I talked about Omen on here, I'm not sure I'll be able to do it, to be honest, on the fly here, but you can get an orb somewhere on there. From down here, trust me, this one is more of a proper one way where, you know, there isn't as much of a way to deal with it because the Viper orb is bigger, right? You can't really crouch down too much and see too much, right? Like, particularly if you're playing like over this side, away from the stairs, that should be pretty free kills right there. So definitely a lot of use for Viper on this map on the whole. I think that Viper is going to be very, very strong on this map. I would recommend picking Viper on this map. I mean, it's full of basically what Viper wants. Viper likes very open, big spaces that no one else can smoke, and very tight spaces where the molly and the orb and stuff can, you know, and all that decay can really do a lot of damage and you can't avoid it, right? And that map, this map is just that, right? You have the big open areas like this, and you have, you know, the small close areas in mid as well that you'll be able to use. So really, really good map for Viper on the whole. You know, if we just do a quick smoke for A, I'll just quickly show you. You can do, you know, something just very simple like that. That'll come down here, maybe learn an orb lineup to get in here somewhere, right? And you have access to the A site. I do think that this is just going to be a very good Viper map on the whole. And now let's come to Jett, and for Jett, I don't think there's anything like too crazy on this map. I think she's going to be okay, but I don't think she's amazing. I mean, you can do something like that, which is okay, I guess, and, you know, do that, that's fine. In terms of entering onto the site, you know, you can throw a smoke there. You have to activate the dash now, you know, you come into it here, you live on top of those blocks. Like, it's okay, right? Like, there's some things to do. I don't think it's necessarily the best Jett map. There isn't like a ton of different like boxes and elevations to play on that is that great on the whole, so I don't really think you're getting too much from Jett as a whole, and I think she'll be okay, right? Like, not amazing, but she brings a certain level of value to pretty much every map, and so yeah, I mean, these little smokes down here could be pretty useful on the whole, right? As you're trying to get in, right? Like, coming down this way, you might like the smokes. That could be pretty useful in the whole. But I think she will be probably a bit worse than Neon and Raze. And so let's talk about Neon on the whole. And I think one big thing that you have to know about Neon is if you do the wall down there, it doesn't actually reach the whole way. That is kind of important, I guess. I mean, you can slide across here and just about get in. So it's possible to do that. And I do think the wall down here will be pretty good. And if you can get a bit of early control without using it, right? Like, if you can get a bit further, then it can potentially go the whole way for you, right? You can jump in and out of it, come in here, you know, time it better than I did just then, and you know, you might have some free kills on your hands. So I do think Neon will be decent, you know, especially for this B long area, particularly if you're not playing Viper. If you're not playing Viper, I think you should be playing Neon for that wall to try and get some control of this B long area on the whole. And then, you know, obviously, again, in those tight areas, the stuns are going to be pretty good, right? Like, you're going to be able to do some stuns. They're going to be difficult for the opponent to, you know, get through here, or maybe you come onto this side as well, right? Stuns like that could be pretty good, right? So I definitely think there is some value for Neon if we come to A and we're just pretending that we're just fully entering in onto A. You know, you could do a wall like that, maybe stun there, slide out, hopefully it hits this or something. Yeah, I think the Neon will be pretty decent. As I said, the fast flanks, if flanking does become incredibly good on this map, is this map is very heavily mid, and you can just, you know, fully run it down on the flank here very often, right? I think then that is when Neon will become very, very strong on this map indeed. If you can just, you know, keep continually running down on your opponent on these fast flanks. I think that could be very good going either up B or up A. I think that's where Neon might find the most value. And now let's come to Raze, and I think Raze will be very good on this map, obviously with the tight angles kind of in here, right, or with all the close corners that are going on. I have some good boombot lineups for you if you want. You can come and stand here if you want and do this. Quite nice little boombot that's going to like clear all the way down here, right? It's going to clear this corner for you as well as it bounces there. Nice little boombot there, and then if you just change your position slightly, but then stick with where you're aiming towards this kind of little archway there, this boombot instead will go into this, right? And so go into this archway and then clear all of this up for you. So a few little lineups there, and then there's ones as well I've seen that like come down here and like, you know, scan all of this and then come around here and bounce all there. Really good boombots as well. There's ones on A that I did at one point. Can't quite remember exactly where I did it, but it, like, you know, scans all the way up here, comes all the way up there. Again, if no one gets revealed by that boombot, they're probably not A, because the barriers start like here. So, you know, if they aren't here at the start of the round, they're probably not really on A that much, or holding very passively indeed, so that'll give you a lot of control. I think the Raze is just going to be very good for this map on the whole. The one area of the map she might struggle with a bit, obviously, is again this B long kind of area. This is the one part of the map that Raze might struggle with a bit, but you can, you know, launch a nade down there, for instance, and get pretty good value, right? And so there will definitely be a pretty good Raze map. I mean, Raze is just strong overall, so I definitely think Raze will be a good choice. Now let's come to Yoru, and I think that Yoru on this map will find some value. I mean, again, you can, you know, do TPs like this if you really wanted to, right? They're going to cut across that wall, come over there, right, and end up down there. You can do ones that get in towards spawn as well. I mean, the barriers start pretty pushed up, so if you can get kind of, you know, up early here, you know, potentially send one just like that, and then maybe retreat. That's one potential thing that you can do as well, right? And if we follow this, it goes all the way deep into the attacker's spawn, so that's one for Yoru potentially to do as well. Mid, I don't think is as accessible to Yoru on the whole. When you tend to look at how this map is laid out, you can like maybe get to there if you wanted to, but you know, there isn't too much in terms of like fakes here that, you know, I think will be that great, or gate crashes that will be that great. Same like here, right? Like, you know, you're just gonna get stuck on this box a lot of the time, so I don't really think it's that viable there in mid. So Yoru maybe not the best in mid. Towards A, I mean, you can come down here if you want and do a great gate crash here as well. So I think this is like an okay map for Yoru. I don't think it's amazing. I think it's like okay. And Yoru will probably be, yeah, just okay on this map on the whole, I think. Okay, now let's come to Phoenix and Reyna. And now let's come to Breach, and I think Breach on the whole is basically about fault lines and his ult. That is where most of the value from Breach is going to come through, because the Aftershock and the Flash is kind of universally decent on pretty much all maps. So one little stun that you can do would be something like this, right? Like a cross like that. Again, that's going to get all of this. It's going to help your teammates on the other side of mid if they're pushing there as well. It's kind of similar to Omen, right? Again, if you can get yourself like tucked in behind this box here, that would be quite good, because you can send a stun down all the way for your teammates, like down that lane there on the other side of mid. So that's pretty useful. I think in mid, generally, Breach will be pretty useful, right? I mean, on the defended side, you can come like here and send a stun down there, right? And get all of mid, really get all of that side of mid, so you know, your opponent, your teammate can go swinging out pretty aggressively with it here. You know, so that's nice. I think the problem for Breach is, whilst he's good in mid, maybe not as strong towards A and B. You know, he is going to find some value a stun like this, right, that just kind of comes down here. Again, probably will be fine. On B, I think obviously this wide open area is a bit too wide for Breach's stun. So, you know, that's not maybe ideal. I mean, on the attacking side, something like that could be okay. But on the defensive side, you know, they're just going to come across here instead. You won't find as much value from it. In terms of ults, they do, I think, do okay. You know, if you can get into that corner and get an ult off, I think that one's pretty decent. And on A, you have a pretty good ult overall. You're going to get a very good ult onto A if you can get pushed up and get a bit of control, you know, from this area here if you want. I mean, even come a bit further back so that it comes all sight. You know, something like that obviously is going to look very, very good for you entering onto A. So I do think that Breach is going to be an okay pick. I don't think he's bad necessarily. As I said, like the Aftershock and the Flashes are going to find a certain amount of value pretty much on every map. So that's one thing, and yeah, it'll be an okay map, I think, for Breach as well. Now let's come to Fade, and I think Fade is absolutely absurdly good on this map, right? Because there's just a ton of different little houses, basically, to just put these haunts on, right? There's just a ton of houses to get these things on, and just like, they're just unstoppable, right? Like, it's absolutely unstoppable, and you can do it in so many areas. I did one yesterday that got onto this guy's head. You know, for all of mid, like, there's just so many different areas that you can put these things on, right? Like this, or on any of these rooftops here. There's just so many rooftops that you're just going to be able to find so much value with the Fade Haunt. And again, the Prowlers are going to be super, super good in this area, right? In this close mid area. Clearing out that with Prowlers is going to be very, very strong as well. And I think if the Prowlers and the Haunt is good, then Fade is very good on a map. And so I know that the Haunts in particular are going to be insane on this map, because there's so many good positions to put them in. I really do think that you'll be looking pretty good with Fade on this map on the whole. I think this will be a very good Fade map. I mean, you could probably get one on the top of this as well, you know, for scouting down here towards B. Like, there's just going to be a lot of different things to do with Fade on this map, and I think she'll just be very, very, very strong. I think she suits it very well. You know, a season here again. You know, you have some alarm bot in there or something, right? You seize after it. You know, it's just going to be a death trap, to be honest, right? Seize and Raze nade into this, like, what are you going to do? Yeah, just extremely strong overall. The ult, you know, might not find a ton of value on B again, right? Like the kind of way B is laid out, it might not be super amazing, but that's fine. You know, the ult isn't the strongest part of Fade's kits anyway, so I'm not too worried about that for Fade. You know, this ult on A is pretty good, right? Again, covering the whole thing. But I think Fade will just be super strong on this map because the haunts are going to be so strong. Now let's come to KO, and one little thing I like about KO on this map is this kind of knife here that kind of lands in this area. Again, there will be times when no one is coming towards A, and this is a lot of space to take as the defenders if you can know that no one's there. And there are a bunch of knives that you can probably do in this kind of location, right? Whether it be on that somewhere, whether it be on like this tree, whether it be, you know, somewhere on this house. There's gonna be certain things, you know, whether it's on this house, there's gonna be certain things that are very difficult to break, and you're gonna get a lot of info pretty early on. The same is somewhat true for B, maybe not as good, but definitely possible still. You know, putting one up here is gonna tell you pretty much a lot about B as well. So definitely you're going to get a lot of information for KO, and there's going to be a ton of good knives, particularly on the defensive side, I think, and that is going to be really strong. I mean, KO's pretty good on every map, right? Like, he's just kind of universally pretty good. So he definitely will be finding value no matter what. Obviously, the ult is pretty much universally good, and yeah, he's going to, I mean, obviously a little pop flash in there is going to be pretty useful for you. So yeah, KO will be definitely pretty good on this map. I think he's definitely going to be helped out by some of these knives for sure. And yeah, he'll be a pretty decent pick. Now let's come to Skye, and I think that Skye is going to be super good on this map, basically because of a couple flashes, right? There's some open areas here where it's going to be difficult for people to avoid a flash like this early on in the round, and that's going to give you info whether people are actually coming to B or not. And I think on this map, there's going to be quite a few different times where there actually isn't that many people coming towards B or A, and you can do it on both sides. So it's kind of reminiscent of Bind towards B long there, where, you know, you send out that Skye flash towards kind of out of garden. You know, that's really strong. I think a similar thing is going to happen here, where you can do this as a flash, right, and you'll flash up here, right, and again, there's only behind this box is the only place that they can actually avoid this Skye flash, and they're not going to expect that at all. And if this flash doesn't catch anyone, you can tell your player on A, oh, yeah, you can just get this ult up, you can come running up here, right, they're not on A, they're probably the closest that they'll be is like back here. You're going to take a ton of control based off that as well. Skye's ult, the dog, the flashes on attack are always going to find a certain amount of value, right? Like the dog obviously is going to be super useful for clearing out in towards mid here, right? Like it's going to be super useful in there. So that will always find a certain amount of value anyway. Again, flashing down B long here, especially if you are playing Viper, as I said, and I think Viper will be good on this map. You know, flashing, if you have that Viper wall down there, right, you flash in, you follow it in after that, right, like that will all be super strong, I think. I think that is a way to go potentially on this map, and I think that will be very strong indeed. Now let's come to Sova, and I think Sova will be okay. I don't think Sova is as good as Fade on this map, which I think will be a bit of a problem. You know, there's some decent areas that you can put a dart right into mid here. It's going to scan everyone in mid. That's a decent dart if you can find a lineup for that. On B side, I think it'll be pretty good because, again, Sova likes kind of these open areas, right? That's what Sova's kind of good at. I think the drone down B long, this will be quite good for clearing out ops and whatnot, right? Like coming around here, seeing what's on this B site. I think this will be pretty good on the whole. You can maybe just catch a bit of heaven there, right? If you learn, I don't know, a dart that goes somewhere up there or something, or maybe even on the top of this building, right? Like, as I missed that. But, you know, in this kind of area, I think there definitely will be some use for Sova on B. I think that's where he'll thrive the most. My problem with Sova might be in this mid area here. That is where I might prefer like a KO or a Skye in this kind of area. Definitely a Fade, right? And so I think that might be Sova's downfall. Like, you know, where exactly are you going to put a dart here towards mid, right? Like, it might not be the best overall use for Sova here in this kind of area. So I think he'll be okay. I think you can definitely make it work. If you're a team that likes going B a lot, then maybe he'll be a very good choice. So yeah, an okay pick, but maybe not quite as good as like a Fade. Now let's come to Chamber, and again, a trap in here is going to be if this trap goes off, you know, that is amazing, because then you just nade in here with a Raze or something, right, and they are just absolutely destroyed. So that's a pretty good chamber trap there for the defensive side. I think the problem is on the attacking side, as I kind of mentioned before, is chamber obviously only with the one trap. You could potentially be flanked from both sides pretty easily. So if you do go like for a heavy commit A and you're kind of relying on this chamber trap, I actually think that this is a pretty good position for a chamber trap in here. That's quite a nice one, because I don't think that they can actually get around here without it going off. So that's quite nice. So there are some good chamber traps on here for sure, and obviously like the TP is going to find a certain amount of value on all maps. I don't think this will be Chamber's best map overall, because I think, you know, he'll probably want to, there isn't too many op locations. Obviously this is a very good one, but you know, there isn't too many others walking around either on this map, so I'm not too sure about Chamber overall. I think he'll be okay. I mean, he's pretty decent on every map, right? Like, he'll be fine, don't get me wrong. You can definitely play Chamber and you'll find success. I'm not sure it'll be, like, his best map, though, if you know what I mean. Okay, so for Killjoy, she definitely has some benefits on this map, right? There are some turrets that will watch kind of 2 lanes for you. It is a bit deep. It is a bit passive where you have to do this for these turrets. So that is, like, not ideal, I would say, overall. Like, another one that you could say is, like, maybe on this box here or something, right? It watches maybe both of them. So there are like some decent Killjoy setups with these kind of turrets. One advantage Killjoy does have is obviously the turret has infinite range. And so anyone coming down here on B, I mean, maybe you could even put it like there, right? And just watch the turret. If the turret sees anyone here, it'll tell you, right? And you just hold the kind of far angle there, right? From maybe behind this. The turret goes off, you come across, you swing, you know that they're in here. Those are all potentials as well. Obviously, the Nano Swarm and a Lombot again in mid are going to be extremely good, right? A Nano Swarm in here is going to be super good. A Nano Swarm in here is going to be pretty good as well, right? And even here on like the steps is going to be pretty good. So yeah, the Nano Swarms and the Alarm Bot in mid definitely will be pretty good. There are probably some turret lineups, and luckily for Killjoy as well, some very good lockdowns, right? Like this one here, extremely strong for obvious reasons, right? It gets all the sight. It can't be wall banged at all. You cannot shoot through those walls at all. So very, very good little Killjoy spot. Although it could be susceptible to certain nades and whatnot, so that is one thing to think about. Same is sort of true on B, where I kind of did that one for Breach. This one, though, is probably a bit easier to get at for the defenders if they are in this situation, right? You can learn like a little Nano Swarm in there, right? And just get that back corner where they potentially could be. But again, a pretty good one, right? And if they have to come out swinging all the way around here to destroy it, you know, that is quite far for them to have to come out and actually destroy that. So definitely some good Killjoy lockdowns overall. There's some good ones in mid as well that you can do that are going to push them back. As I said, like, mid will be pretty important. I mean, I haven't even tried this, but what happens if you do, like, put one in here? Right, let's push them back off all of mid. This could be quite interesting to try and, like, get down there, right? Like, maybe you smoke this off and you come this way. That could be an interesting little thing to do. So yeah, Killjoy is definitely going to find a certain amount of decent value here overall. I think she'll be pretty good for this map. If someone can find some very good Killjoy setups, and maybe I will in the next couple of days. But if someone can, then Killjoy could go from being like pretty good to insanely good if there are some very good Killjoy setups. Again though, in terms of watching the flank, you are obviously going to have to stay within range, which is kind of a bit of a downside if you want to be pushing further and deeper up in mid. Maybe you put an alarm bot somewhere like there, but you can see the range on this like is only going to get to a certain area. So we'll have to see. Maybe someone can find a better setup than me. I'm sure you can. But Killjoy should be decent. And now let's come to Cypher, and one advantage Cypher might have is obviously being able to protect both flanks without needing to be anywhere. That's definitely something that could come into effect on this map. I have also found a pretty good attacking cam here that goes on this little bit of construction, right, that you can see into the A site and see if anyone's pushing up there as well. Really quite nice. So maybe that becomes like a default cam to potentially like lurk up on this A site, right? Like you put a cage down there, you take a look at, oh, there is someone right there, you ping them, right, you swing on them, all of that good stuff. That is potential for Cypher, no doubt. A very good cam to be put in there. Defensively though, unfortunately, you can't quite manage to get it on there for the defensive side because you're too low down. So there really isn't as many like amazing cams, or at least ones that I've found. I'm sure it's possible that there are some that people can find, and there are a lot of, like, as I mentioned, for Fade, like, because there's so many houses and stuff, I'm sure there are some decent cams out there that are waiting to be found. So that does give me hope for Cypher. There is also a cam here on B on this tree. It is very difficult to get. I don't know if you have to be standing in a certain spot, but I have done it. You might have just seen it light up blue there, but it's very difficult to actually get onto the tree. There it is, and that will obviously see all of this for you here towards this B long area. Pretty nice camera on the whole. Quite a nice little spot for it there. So definitely I think Cypher will find quite a bit of value, particularly if this does become a heavy flanking map. If that does keep happening, obviously on this side you can just take a look as well down there what's going on. So yeah, if it does become like a heavy flanking map, then obviously Cypher will probably be maybe even the best Sentinel choice, so that definitely will play into it. But yeah, Cypher probably will find some value on this map. And now let's come to Sage, last but not least. And obviously Sage, again, if mid does end up being super important, obviously any wall like this is going to be super important. Obviously slows in there are going to be super good for stopping any attack there. On the other side of mid, much as the same I think is true, right? You can come and put a wall anywhere in here if you want, right? Block it off pretty easy. You can come and throw slows in here, very strong, right? And I think if on your attacking side as well, and you want to come down here, because you don't want to get, like, you don't want your team to get here, you've only smoked it off, and then, you know, the defender just runs around, like, gets 2 kills on you there, right? I think that Sage could be very good for this in particular, right? Just walling off this area here, right? Just saying, no, we're getting through down here, like, we're going fast, we're going this way. Could be very good. I've also seen some people, like, you know, trying to use this B site almost to mimic the B site in Icebox, where, you know, you just put up that there and try and get a plant down and just try and plant the spike and then play post plant if you can. That could be a possibility that happens, but I do think that if mid is very important on this map, then Sage will be pretty good, right? It's similar to Split. But, you know, if this map does play out similar to Split, where mid is very important, then obviously Sage is going to be very good. Again, same if you're on the attacking side here and you want to come down this way instead, right? Like walling that off there. Could be very useful indeed for doing this kind of fast split down here. If you get onto site, that's a pretty good wall as well. So, yeah, I do think that Sage is going to have quite a bit of value on this map overall. So let's quickly just put them on a tier list then of my initial impressions. Remember, this can change. Don't hold me to this if someone finds some super OP setups with certain agents, right? But just my initial impressions of this map for each agent. I'd say Breach is probably B tier. Brim, I'd say maybe is sort of C tier, maybe high C tier. Cypher, I think, will be high B tier probably as well. Jett, I'll probably put in C tier as well. Omen, I think, will be B tier. He'll be fine. Phoenix, let's not talk about it. Raze, I think, will probably be A tier, maybe even S tier. Sage as well, I think, will probably be an A tier. Sova, because he's probably just going to be worse than Fade, I think I'll probably put on C tier, but I don't think he'll be that super bad. I think it'll just be he's worse than Fade. Viper, I think, is S tier. Reyna, again, like Reyna just, like, it's the same on every map. There isn't really a good or bad map for Reyna necessarily. Killjoy, I think potentially if you can find the right setup, she does have some half decent lockdowns. I'll put it like low B tier, I think. Skye, I'm kind of debating S or A tier. I think Skye will be really good on this map. I'll put her at the top of A. Yoru, I don't think there's a ton of good Yoru lineups, so I'll put him at like the top of C, I think. Astra, I think, will probably be in B somewhere here as well. KO, again, is going to be pretty good on any map, so he's probably like an A tier agent on this map, right? He's just going to find probably a bit of value. Chamber, as chamber maps go for him, I don't think that this necessarily will be the best one, so I'll probably put him in B tier, right? Like, obviously he's still super strong, but I don't think this will be Chamber's best map. Neon, I think, could be pretty good as well. I'll put her to the top of B, and I'll put Fade in S tier as well. I think she'll be very strong on this map. So this is kind of my initial impressions. Again, this is very subject to potentially change as I play more with it and see more of the map overall, but I do think that, I mean, if you look at this overall, yeah, it kind of looks like a mixture of Split and Bind, I guess you might say, maybe KO being the one exception, but yeah, I think that those are the agents that will be pretty good on this map.